Hello Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel, with another installment of Fallacy Explained, a series in which in each episode I pick one logical fallacy and explain it in depth. Today's fallacy is one that you probably think is a rather simple fallacy, but it is in fact very often called out on a false alarm. This fallacy is the fallacious form of Argumentum Ad Hominem. It is also known as the ad hominem fallacy. Now, you may have noticed that I introduced the ad hominem fallacy as the fallacious form of Argumentum Ad Hominem. Does this mean that there is a form of Argumentum Ad Hominem that is not fallacious? Well, yes, there is, and that is one of the several things that I will cover in this episode. But what is Argumentum Ad Hominem? Well, it is when, in the face of a particular assertion or argument, instead of attacking the assertion or argument itself, you attack some characteristic of the person or party that makes that argument or assertion. For this to be a valid form of argumentation, there are two criteria that must both be met. The first criterion is that the argument or claim is not one that you have the qualification to assess yourself and are instead asked to accept the argument or claim on the authority of the person making it. The second criterion is that the characteristic of the one making the claim that you attack is relevant to that party's qualification or trustworthiness to make such a claim on their own authority. For Argumentum Ad Hominem to be a valid form of argumentation, it is not enough for just one of these criteria to be met. Rather, it is essential that both criteria are met. Otherwise, the Argumentum Ad Hominem is fallacious and therefore an example of the ad hominem fallacy. This is a kind of red herring because the personal characteristic that you are attacking is irrelevant, and the most you can hope to achieve is to distract from what is relevant. That said, false alarms of this fallacy abound. Many times, the ad hominem fallacy is called out when no argumentum ad hominem was made at all, fallacious or otherwise. The good news is, I have an algorithm for assessing any suspected case of Argumentum Ad Hominem. I also have prepared this graphic representation of the algorithm, i.e., a flowchart, and in a few moments I will walk you through the algorithm before demonstrating its use in some examples of suspected cases of this fallacy. Now, unfortunately, this algorithm is not completely airtight. For one thing, as is a rule in algorithmic rationalism, the process of formulating these algorithms is not infallible. Also, as is generally the case, though the specific nature of the questions asked in the algorithm can significantly reduce the room that bias has for screwing with you, it cannot always eliminate it entirely. And in the current version of this algorithm, there is one step that is especially perilous in this regard, which I will discuss when we get to it. But with that said, let me walk you through the algorithm. Now, before we get into the actual steps of the algorithm, we first have to define the labels that this algorithm uses as shorthand. The labels used in this particular algorithm are person A, person B, and argument C. Person B is the one who is suspected of having committed the ad hominem fallacy by attacking a personal characteristic of another entity, which we label here as person A. Argument C is the argument or claim that was made by person A that supposedly prompted person B's ad hominem attack. With that out of the way, on to the steps. As in general is the case, we begin with step 1. In step 1, we ask the most basic question to determine whether or not the argument is argumentum ad hominem in the first place. After all, we cannot determine whether the use of argumentum ad hominem is fallacious or not until we have verified that it was used at all in the first place. So we ask a simple question. Is the reference to a personal characteristic of person A at all in the first place part of the basis that person B proposes for discrediting argument C? If the answer is no, then this is not an ad hominem argument at all, fallacious or otherwise, and this flagging of the fallacy is dismissed as a false alarm. Believe it or not, I have seen many cases of the algorithm end here. There are many people who will accuse you of the ad hominem fallacy if they find that a debunking of a weak position that they hold hurts their credibility or even their ego. There is no shortage of false alarms of this fallacy that end here. But what if the answer to the question of step 1 is yes? Then yes, this is an ad hominem argument, but not necessarily a fallacious one. To find out if it is a fallacious or valid use of argumentum ad hominem, we will need to proceed to step 2. In step 2 we ask, does argument C hinge on any claim that the recipient is asked to accept on the authority of person A? If the answer is no, then this clearly is indeed a case of the ad hominem fallacy. If you are capable and qualified to reliably assess an argument or claim yourself, then that argument or claim should be able to stand or fall on its own. In such a situation, no personal characteristic of the one making that argument or claim can be relevant at all. So this is a case where we can confidently say, fallacy confirmed. But what if the answer to the question in step 2 is yes? Then we need to proceed to step 3, where we ask, is the characteristic of person A that is referenced to discredit argument C relevant to person A's authority and or trustworthiness to make whatever claims in the argument rest on person A's own authority? This is where things can unfortunately get very messy. There is not always a universal consensus on what can qualify or disqualify someone from making certain claims, and even when a clear-cut answer exists, it is not always well understood by everyone. Sorting this out can be a whole can of worms of its own, which is way more than I will find the time to discuss in this video. That is, unless I make this video inordinately long and take forever to produce it, and even then, there will probably be a lot left uncovered on this topic. So for the sake of brevity, let us just say that we have answered this question as best we can. If the answer to the question in step 3 is no, then fallacy confirmed. This is indeed a case of the ad hominem fallacy, because if the characteristic that you attack has no bearing on the qualification or trustworthiness of the other party to make that claim, then that characteristic is not relevant to the discussion, period. On the other hand, if the answer to the question in step 3 is yes, then this is a false alarm. This is indeed a case of argumentum ad hominem, but not a fallacious one. So, that is the whole algorithm from beginning to end. Now it is time to walk through a few examples. Let us assume that I make a medical claim, citing nothing but my confidence in doing so, and you respond by pointing out that my confidence on this matter is not enough because I am not a doctor. Are you making an ad hominem argument? And if so, are you making a fallacious one? Well, step one. Is the reference that you make of my not being a doctor part of your basis of dismissing the medical claim that I just made? Yes. You directly said that it is because I am not a doctor that my confidence on this matter is not enough. So, technically, this is ad hominem, but is it fallacious? To answer that, we go on to step two. Am I asking you to accept something on my own authority? Well, if I cite nothing but my confidence in making the claim, then yes. So we go on to step three. Is the fact that I am not a doctor relevant to my qualification or trustworthiness to make medical claims? Well, duh. Since I am also not a lawyer, I cannot speak on the matter of what the legal consequences may or may not be to me making a medical claim without a medical license, let alone without a medical degree. But regardless of what the legal answer is, you would be foolish to accept any medical claim that I make myself, given that I have no medical qualifications at all. Now, even if I was a doctor, there would still be concern if I was making a medical claim that is at odds with the overwhelming consensus of the medical community as a whole, and there might still be other limitations to the medical authority of people who have the proper basic medical qualifications. But in the case of someone like me, who never set foot in med school, it is a very simple open and shut case. I have no medical authority whatsoever, and there is nothing fallacious about pointing that out to discredit any medical claim that I myself make. But let us take another example, which is just like this one, only one difference. Instead of making a medical claim myself, I print out for you a page on WebMD or some other medical website containing a medical claim. And just to make this a simple example, I do not say, see, they agree with such and such claim, or in any other way try to lead you in how you interpret the paper. I just hand you the paper that I printed out and leave you to interpret and or conclude from it what you will. But again, you are dismissive, because I am not a doctor. The answer to the question in step one remains the same, because my not being a doctor is still your basis for dismissiveness. But then we go on to step two and ask, am I asking you to accept anything on my personal authority? This time, the answer is no. This time, I am not asking you to accept anything on my authority, but I'm simply printing out for you what WebMD says. So in this particular case, fallacy confirmed. You are indeed committing the ad hominem fallacy. We can talk till the cows come home on how much we ought to or ought not rely on WebMD or any other medical website. Those issues of credibility would still remain, but me not having any medical credentials myself, not really as relevant anymore in this particular example. For our third and final example, let us suppose that this time the medical claim that I make is something truly outrageous. For example, let us say that someone is concerned that they are infected with a particular disease which I will not name at fear of upsetting YouTube. And I suggest that to get the disease out of the system, that person should do something like, say, drink Clorox. You respond by saying, no, Sophia, they should not drink Clorox. Are you crazy? Are you committing the ad hominem fallacy then? Again, let us go back to step 1. Is the reference to a personal characteristic of mine that you make in any way part of your basis for rejecting my claim? In this case, the answer is no. It is true that you have suggested that I might be crazy, but that is not your basis for rejecting my claim. Rather, it is as a result of you having by other means found my claim to be so outlandish and frankly dangerous that you question my sanity as a result of that assessment. So the answer to the question in step 1 this time is no, which means that we have a complete false alarm. Not only is this not the ad hominem fallacy, but this is not a case of argumentum ad hominem at all. So, what other fallacies do you think I should explore? Let me know in the comments section below. And while you are at it, join my Discord server. In the YouTube video description area of this video, you can find a link to the Stay in Touch page on my blog, which includes a link to my Discord server. My blog also has various options by which you can subscribe and therefore be not as dependent as you otherwise would be on YouTube's computer algorithm to see my new videos. Though I hope that you do this in addition to subscribing here, not instead, because subscribing here still does help my channel out. Also, share this video with your friends. Once again, make sure you are subscribed to my channel and ring the bell. And until next time, see ya!